I'm Josh Bryan. I'm an engineering manager at Globus, and it's my privilege to head up the Globus Compute team. I really just wanted to spend a few minutes going over some of the things that we've been working on over the last year, some of the new features that you may or may not be aware are available, and then talk a little bit about what we're going to be working on over the next year, and mostly just informative and see if you guys have any questions or suggestions or other things that we should be paying attention to. Um, So the big thing that we've been up to over the last year has been working on Globus Compute HA or high assurance. And so this is bringing Globus Compute up to the standards and security standards and authentication standards and supporting the authentication features needed for for basically any of our high assurance products in the Globus ecosystem. Some of you may be familiar with transfer and GCS HA endpoints. The big features that come along with high assurance are stronger authentication requirements. So we're able to basically require recent in-session authentication, make sure that you have authenticated with the browser that is actually involved or on the machine you are working from, so we can enforce some of those session requirements and session isolation between authentications. We allow you to restrict access to specific identity providers. So if you are at A&L or Chicago or whatever, you can restrict your access to only supporting that community. You're now able to require MFA for authentication to compute endpoints. And then there's also a whole bunch of sort of operational and legal framework that comes along with that. We're now are for people who use it at the HA tier or the BAA tier, can use it with controlled unclassified information or PHI, personal health information. And then we also provide a few admin-friendly features like audit logging, things like that, to allow you to go back and figure out what's been used and who's accessed it and when. And then there's a bunch of cloud service controls just on how we operate Globus Compute cloud services, making sure that we have the audit controls and the monitoring things in place to support these other sort of legal frameworks. So that's been a big part of our effort this last year. We just got to announce that back in April of this year, and we've seen some people pick it up, so that's been pretty exciting. Additionally, along with that, for subscribers, we have added an administrative console for multi-user endpoints. So if you have multi-user endpoint and you add your Global subscription ID to it, you'll get access to our admin console. You can see things like which users are currently on, what they're doing, how much, how many nodes they have, and we plan on continuing to build this out and add more features to this over the next year or so. Another big thing we've added is a new version of our action provider for Globus Compute. For those of you who have used flows with Globus Compute, this basically adds additional features and some better serialization mechanisms to our action provider. Big piece is that you can now use the action provider with multi-user endpoints. So we do support providing user config data to the endpoint when you submit a task through the action provider. Improve serialization between the AP and the endpoint. So there were some weird edge cases where you were not just trying to match two Python versions because you had one in your SDK and one in your endpoint, but there's also a third one that you might not have been entirely aware of, which was the one that was in our AP. And so we've sort of been able to tease that apart and take that out of the mix. So that should simplify some of the issues there. Support for resource specifications has been useful for something like the MPI provider and things like that. Additionally, we've added some better Globus SDK and SDK. Let me see if I can say that slower. SDK and CLI integration. So now the Globus SDK out of the box has support for making API calls to Globus Compute, and the Globus Compute SDK is sort of built on top of that. Um, we included some endpoint management through the SDK CLI, and then a whole bunch of sort of paper cuts and bug fixes and things like that in our SDK to simplify usage. So that's what we've been up to. For this next year, we have a couple of things that are planned. The big thing that we've been working on currently, we plan on releasing pretty soon, is templates for all. When we built it out, multi-user endpoints, we added templating because in order for multi-user endpoints to be particularly useful, there needed to be a way for the end user to do some amount of config. As a result, a lot of people found that useful, and a lot of people are now running multi-user endpoints as single-user endpoints because they want the templating, but not the multi-users. So what we're doing is we're basically taking that whole model, backporting it into the single-user model. Going forward, once this gets released, if you install a single-user endpoint, it will be template capable. You can use templates with it. Really, the thing that demarks a multi-user and a single-user endpoint now will be, do you map identities to local users? This also means a unified execution model between multi-user and single-user endpoints. It's been a little bit of an odd paper cut before. And then supporting some more complex templates and things like that. Another big push that we're doing is better documentation. So trying to get good config examples out there, good examples of how to do common tasks. A lot of people will say, well, how do I do X, Y, Z? And all the pieces are there in our docs right now, but you kind of have to put them together. And so we want to have some nice sort of tutorials of here's the recipe for doing this, here's the recipe for doing that. So also improving organization around that. And then there's a bunch more sort of little things that we are trying to tee up. Pluggable serialization. So we're trying to, this is again sort of trying to remove some of the paper cuts around matching versions between SDK and endpoint code. Task lifecycle features, we'd like to be able to start doing things like clearing task queues, better recovery and restarts, hot restarts of endpoints, things like that. And we are also planning on adding console views for single user endpoints now that we're putting single user endpoints into the same execution model as the multi-user endpoints. This is the team that I get to work with. Most of them are here. They're awesome. And